You know, it's hard to avoid the headlines these days, isn't it? Another data breach, another company really getting scrutinized for how they handle our personal information.
Mm.
It really hits home just how vital online privacy has become. I mean, not just for us using the internet, but really for any business operating today.
Absolutely. I think, trust is really the currency now. And how a business manages and protects personal data,
Mhm.
that directly impacts the trust people place in them.
Yeah.
It's just not a side issue anymore. It's fundamental. Good business practice, really.
And that really brings us right to what we're talking about today, privacy policy compliance. We've got some really helpful insights here from the Reef Law Firm. They sort of
Mm.
break down what compliance actually means and, maybe more importantly, the role lawyers play in all this.
Yeah. Our aim today is to clarify this whole area of privacy policy compliance for you. We want to give you a clear picture of what's involved, why it's so critical, especially now with all the legal and tech changes,
Mm.
and the key things that make compliance actually work. We're hoping to cut through some of the noise and just give you what you need to know.
Okay, so let's dive into this dynamic privacy landscape they mention. It sounds like things are changing really fast.
That's a key point. The speed of technology. I mean, think about AI, e-commerce everywhere, the Internet of Things connecting everything, how businesses use SaaS, cloud computing.
It's completely changed the game.
It really has. It's fundamentally altered how personal data gets collected, used, processed. And that, plus, people being much more aware and expecting more privacy, has led to a whole wave of new rules.
And it's not like there's just one big federal law here in the US, is it? It feels more like a patchwork quilt.
That's a perfect way to put it. Fragmented is the word often used. We don't have that single overarching federal privacy law, but what we are seeing is this huge surge in state-level laws.
Right.
And 2025 is actually a big year for that. We've got new comprehensive laws kicking in states like Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey.
Yep.
Yeah, giving consumers more rights, putting more responsibility on businesses. And without that federal standard, you just can't have a one-size-fits-all approach anymore. You've got to watch every state.
So businesses can't just, rest on the old laws.
Definitely not. And it's not just the new laws either. The existing ones, like California's CCPA, amended by the CPRA,
Hmm.
they're being enforced much more actively.
Okay.
The source material even mentions an enforcement action against Honda back in March 2025.
Hmm.
So this increased enforcement, it really shows businesses need to take this seriously, be proactive.
And then you add the international layer on top of that, GDPR and so on. It must feel pretty daunting for businesses operating globally.
It can be, absolutely. The GDPR in the EU, that's often seen as the gold standard, right?
Yeah.
Very strict, big enforcement.
Hmm.
And the UK, post-Brexit, has kept its laws pretty much aligned. So if you operate internationally, a single privacy policy just won't cut it. You absolutely have to tailor them. Different rules in different places.
Okay, so with all this complexity, this changing landscape, where does a company even start? The privacy policy itself seems like the obvious first step.
That's right. A well-written privacy policy is usually that first visible step a business takes to show it's serious about compliance.
Like a notice to the world.
Exactly. It's the public notice to your users saying, here's how we handle your data, what we collect, why we collect it, who we might share it with, how we protect it, all those basics.
But the information we're looking at makes it really clear. The policy itself is just the beginning, right? It's only one piece of a much bigger picture.
Precisely. A privacy policy on its own, yeah, it's essential, but it's not enough for full compliance. It has to be part of the broader, more robust privacy program that's embedded in how the business actually operates.
Now, this next bit really caught my eye, the warnings about using those free privacy policy templates you find online. It seems so tempting, especially for smaller businesses, but the sources flag some real dangers.
They do, and it's a valid concern. Look, the upfront cost saving of a free template might look good, but the potential long-term risks, they often massively outweigh that initial saving.
How so?
Well, they're generic, right? So they might have clauses that don't even apply to your business, but could create legal duties you didn't need. Or, maybe worse, they might miss out crucial things that are required by the laws you do need to follow.
I see, like using a standard contract for a very specific deal.
Exactly. It rarely fits properly and can leave you really exposed. You could be taking on risks you didn't need or missing protections you absolutely did.
And they don't know your specific business, do they?
That's the other major thing. They lack customization. They can't possibly account for the specific types of data you collect, or exactly how you process it, or where your customers are geographically.
Right.
So you end up with a policy that doesn't actually match what you do. And that mismatch, that can lead straight to fines, lawsuits, serious trouble.
Okay, so if the policy is just the foundation, what are these other essential parts, the things businesses really need for proper compliance?
Right. So beyond the document itself, the sources point to several key components. First up is data mapping.
Data mapping.
Yeah. It's basically the process of figuring out and, importantly, documenting exactly what personal data you collect, where it's stored, how it moves around, who touches it internally, or, vendors.
Like drawing a map of where all the information lives and goes.
Precisely. Think of it like a plumbing diagram for your data. You need that map to spot risks and make sure everything you're doing with the data is, well, lawful and documented. It's how you find out what you actually have.
That makes a lot of sense. Hard to protect what you don't know you have. Okay, what's next?
Next is conducting data protection impact assessments, or DPIAs. You might also hear them called PIAs, privacy impact assessments.
Okay, DPIAs or PIAs, when are those needed?
They're especially important when you're doing something with data that could be high risk for people's privacy. So
Yeah.
think processing sensitive data or using new tech like AI.
Right, the cutting edge stuff.
Exactly. A DPIA is where you systematically look at the potential risks to privacy from that activity, and then you figure out how to minimize those risks. Put safeguards in place. And laws like the GDPR actually require these in certain high-risk situations.
So it's like a privacy checkup before you launch something risky.
That's a great way to think about it, a privacy stress test. Then following that, you have the crucial step of actually operationalizing privacy rights.
Operationalizing, meaning making it actually work in practice.
Yes. Setting up the real-world processes and systems to handle requests from people about their data. Things like data subject access request DRs, where someone asks to see their data.
Or ask you to delete it or fix it.
Exactly. Deletion requests, correction requests, opting out of sales or targeted ads. Businesses need solid ways to check who's asking, make sure it's really them, and then respond within the legal deadlines.
That sounds like it could involve quite a bit of work, especially for smaller teams.
It definitely can be, which is why having clear, efficient processes is so important. And finally, the sources highlight data processing agreements, or DPAs.
DPAs, that's for when you use third parties, right? Vendors.
Correct.
Yeah.
Anytime you use a vendor to process data for you, like a cloud provider, a marketing platform, payment processor, you need a DPA.
And what does that do?
It's a legal contract. It makes sure that vendor also follows the privacy laws and has good security measures in place to protect the data you're sharing with them. Your responsibility doesn't just stop when you hand the data over.
So you have to make sure your partners are compliant too.
Exactly. Everyone in the chain needs to be upholding the same standards.
Okay. The material also mentions how the privacy policy needs to connect with other things on your website or in your legal documents. Can you expand on that?
Sure. Your privacy policy doesn't live in a vacuum. It interacts with other things. Take your terms and conditions, your T&Cs.
Right. Most sites have those.
So the T&Cs usually cover the rules for using the service or website itself. The privacy policy is specifically about data, but they should work together. Ideally, they cross-reference each other where it makes sense, creating a kind of complete legal picture for the user.
And what about those cookie banners? They're everywhere now.
Ah, yes, cookie consent. That's directly tied to your privacy policy. Many laws say you need explicit consent before you drop tracking cookies for ads, analytics, that kind of thing.
The non-essential ones.
Right, and the information in that cookie banner, what cookies you use, why you use them, that has to match exactly what you say about cookies and data collection in your main privacy policy. It's all about consistency and transparency.
Makes sense. And policies aren't static, are they? They need updating.
Absolutely not static. That's a critical point. Privacy laws change, your business practices might change, you might adopt new tech.
So the policy has to keep up.
Exactly. You have a legal duty to update your policy to reflect reality. And the sources note that for major changes, especially in how you use data, you might actually need to tell users directly about the update.
And maybe even get their consent again.
In some cases, yes. Renewed consent might be necessary. So staying compliant means constant monitoring and being ready to adapt.
It really sounds like an ongoing job.
It is. The legal landscape keeps shifting. So regular reviews and timely updates are, well, they're basically essential, often legally required.
The information also touched briefly on making sure these online agreements actually hold up legally. What's the key thing listeners should know there?
The main takeaway is how you present these agreements matters hugely for whether they're enforceable. Generally, courts prefer click-wrap agreements.
Click wrap. That's where you tick a box or click, I agree.
Precisely. You actively show you agree. That's generally seen as stronger than browse wrap, where the terms are just linked somewhere, and using the site implies you agree.
Which seems a bit vague.
It can be. So, clear, obvious notice of the terms, including the privacy policy, is really key. And you need solid, documented proof that you got proper consent when the law requires it. Consent management is crucial.
Okay, this all paints a picture of something, well, intricate and demanding, which leads nicely into how can privacy lawyers actually help with all this? What's their value?
Well, privacy lawyers bring that specialist knowledge, that experience. First off, they provide tailored advice. They look at your specific business, your data, your locations, and they draft policies that actually fit your legal requirements.
It's not just a generic template.
Miles beyond a template. It's customized legal work. Secondly, they're huge for risk mitigation. They can spot the gaps, the weak points of your current setup. The sources even mention using something like a privacy playbook to strategize.
Like a game plan.
Kind of, yeah. And they help you fix those vulnerabilities. That reduces your risk of fines, lawsuits, and, damage to your reputation.
So avoiding big problems down the road.
Absolutely. Third, they ensure effective policy integration, making sure your privacy policy actually connects properly with your T&Cs, your cookie consent, your internal processes, even employee training. They help stitch it all together.
Connecting the dots.
Exactly. And given how much the laws change,
Keeping up must be tough.
it really is. So providing guidance on regulatory updates is another key role. They track the legal changes, state, federal, international, and tell you proactively when you need to update your policies or practices.
Like having a dedicated watchdog for privacy law.
You could say that. And finally, many offer training and support. That could mean training your employees on privacy basics, or maybe specific things like using AI responsibly, handling sensitive data.
That seems really important, getting the team on board.
Crucial. And they can also help if regulators come knocking, assisting with inquiries or audits. That can be incredibly valuable in high-stakes situations.
It definitely sounds like having a good privacy lawyer in your corner could provide a lot of, well, peace of mind in this complicated area.
It really can. They bring that specialized legal know-how and practical advice that businesses need to navigate this stuff effectively and build that solid foundation of compliance.
So as we sort of wrap up this deep dive, what are the absolute main takeaways on privacy policy compliance you'd want our listeners to walk away with?
I think the biggest one is that today, privacy compliance isn't just a legal checkbox. It's really fundamental to building customer trust, and it's becoming a competitive advantage.
So more than just avoiding fines.
Much more. And while having that clear, accessible privacy policy is the essential starting point, real compliance goes way beyond that single document.
Right.
It means having those robust processes, the data mapping, doing DPIAs when needed, having systems to handle people's rights requests, and making sure your vendor contracts, those DPAs, are solid. It's an ongoing commitment.
And the information we've gone through really highlights that you don't have to, maybe shouldn't try to figure all this out alone.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
Partnering with an experienced privacy lawyer, that can provide invaluable help to make sure you're compliant, manage the risks, and really build that crucial trust with your customers in a world that cares more and more about privacy.
Well, this has been genuinely illuminating, a deep dive into privacy policy compliance. And it's clear it's a complex and constantly moving target, needs real strategic focus.
Indeed. It's about building a true culture of privacy in the organization, not just seeing it as a task to get done.
And on that note, maybe a final thought for you, the listener. Thinking about everything we've discussed, all the complexities, what do you think might be the single biggest challenge or maybe the most unexpected hurdle that businesses face in getting their privacy compliance right going forward? It's definitely something worth pondering as you navigate this digital world.